Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of UX Banter Podcast. This podcast is presented by Galaxy UX Studio and powered by Galaxy Weblinks. Hello. Our guest for today's episode believes that with collaboration and vision, extraordinary things can be accomplished. He is a creative designer, technical developer, and a mentor for the creative community. A man who is in a brand in himself. Please welcome the senior designer for TEKsystems at Meta, Mr. Tim Rosenberg.
Hi, everyone. It's really great to be here. I'm super excited. A little bit about myself. I live in Arlington, Virginia, right outside of DC with my fiance and my two pups. And I work on a lot of the design systems on the Facebook app. And I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Great. So first thing, when you say design systems, Meta and Facebook, it feels like we are talking to somebody who is, when we become designers, that is the path that we all want to take to go up to a FAANG company. How is the view from the top? I mean, how does it look like the rest of the world and the minions?
Yeah, so in my career, I started my career with working for very small companies, maybe 5, 9 people or so, and slowly got into bigger companies. And what I found is that one thing I've learned a lot is about scale. So when I was working on doing UX design for maybe like a small startup, when it came to things like, okay, let's think about accessibility. What about different cultures? Are we being inclusive? Are we, representing diversity? Are we thinking about, users who read from right to left in like Arabic and Hebrew? And in those small stages, in the early stages, oftentimes those complexities of UX design, it might be called an edge case to say, oh, well, we're not going to really think about that market for now. Let's not think about it. One of the biggest things that I've learned about working on a product like the Facebook app is that there are no more edge cases, you can't just think oh, well, we're going to ignore this because, it's such a, small percentage. That percentage, even if it's small, it could be like a millions of people at
True.
scale. So yeah, I've learned a lot about being much more intentional and prioritizing accessibility in design, diversity and inclusion, and some of the small things that you think about, the way that you represent it could have tremendous impact. You think of something trivial as a friend, the word friend, well, what does the word friend mean in different languages? How do people understand those relationships? Because some cultures might think oh, I use Facebook for acquaintances. And so how do you navigate through those nuances across different cultures, different languages, as well as different technology accessibility and affordability? So some people can't afford the latest iPhone, so they have to experience your product maybe on a very slow internet connection. So how do you design for those people as well? So I think if anything I've learned is just the scale of impact and inclusion once you're kind of addressing a global population. It's really exciting stuff.
It is definitely. So when we are talking about the product in general, when you're coming to build it. So in terms of when you look at the future, I mean, Google has the next billion users philosophy, and Facebook is now in a space where, bunch of new exciting products have already out there and new features are coming out. So what sort of role from the UX side that you have to play to just keep the load on the lower side, the cognitive load? I mean, you use all the applications together. There is Facebook has stories, Instagram has reels, you have WhatsApp with the stories and all that. So from the UX product designer point of view, how are the things kept so that they are seamless, the learning curve is low, and everything is just put together?
Oh yeah, that's an excellent question. I think one of the most important things and the hardest things is prioritization in UX design. And so that's what cognitive load really comes down to, because let's take an onboarding experience. I just got an Oculus over the weekend, and it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. But for me, it's a whole new modality that I've never been used to. And what I really appreciate about the onboarding experience is that it only required the least amount necessary to just get the most value out of my first time experience. And then later it says oh, hey, do you want to set this other thing up? There's this feature where I can set up a workstation. I could put on my Oculus and have a virtual keyboard and have my like monitors and everything. I'm like, this is amazing, but I don't want to do all of this all at once. So the prioritization is like, okay, let's just jump into the apps. Let's jump into the like the lobby and kind of orient you to the basics, and kind of add little extra additional onboarding as needed without forcing it to the user. So what's hard is that I think startup founders and tech companies alike, they have a hard time with prioritization. Because if you ask them like, all right, to reduce cognitive load, what's the most important thing? Sometimes these executives, they just say, oh, well, everything's important. So if everything's important, then really nothing's important. So I think you really got to look at like business goals and maybe business metrics. We can say, okay, this one section is 80% of our revenue. Let's focus on this. And then like this other stuff might be adding additional cognitive load. Let's defer that for later.
Cool. So Tim, overall, you just mentioned Oculus and the entire VR landscape that we're looking at, and being part of Meta, I think that is a lot of focus that we are actually putting on over to the VR tech. So from the UX point of view, do you think that that is the future, like this is the direction that the industry is heading?
Oh, absolutely. I think the pandemic showed us that like we human nature craves like proximity and engagement with other people. But the pandemic has also shown us that like we can't always be in person all the time, or we can't travel and meet everyone all at once. So we're in a ever increasingly connected world where we're being hyper connected. But we also, need the ability to have those that like somewhat in-person experience. And so I'm definitely excited about the future of VR and the metaverse. I think that it's the next frontier of UX design. And the biggest challenge is that UX designers really have to take all the skill sets that they've learned in like 2 dimensions. Now they have to apply it into 4 dimensions. They have to think about, what about depth? What about space? And what about like duration? And how do you navigate through a 3D environment and add the factor of time? So I'm definitely excited about VR. I think it's going to be the future of how we interact and experience. But I also think that like it's going to be a bridge to help facilitate real life in-person engagement as well, because we have a beautiful planet, and I don't want us to forget about it, because we're in a fantasy world, and we have real people, and it's important. There's something special about being in person that VR can never replace. But it could at least, fill in the gaps when, it might not be feasible. I think that VR, I was in, let's see, I think it's Horizon Venues. And I was just in there meeting with other people in the metaverse. It was so exciting. And it was also like very surreal. I was like, okay, what do I do here? Like, what's it like? And I was like chatting with people, and they're like, hey, yeah, it's my first time in the metaverse. Like, it's so new that like I think there's a lot of opportunities for UX. And so yeah, I'm really excited to see how UX designers can take their skill set and bring it to the 4th dimension.
Do you think it is a transferable skill? Do you think the current UX skill set can be incorporated to build and design everything for Meta?
I think for UX designers, it's a transferable skill to enter the VR space. The biggest limitation, I would say, is getting familiar with 3D tools. That's like, I would say that next level. And so sometimes that might be partnering with like a Unity developer who can build out 3D environments, or sometimes it might be learning that skill set yourself. I think I tend to be more on the partnership side. So I found that like it's maybe best to partner with someone who specializes in Unity, for example, who can build amazing landscapes and worlds and develop all the logic. I might develop maybe like the interface and the UX experience. So I think it is transferable. You can kind of go 2 paths of like learning 3D yourself, or you could also maybe partner with someone who's like a real specialist, depending on where you kind of see your career.
Cool. But I believe the core skills like information architecture, for example, or interaction design in that space, it is, perfectly transferable. We can just utilize them directly as it is. The only challenge would come in the translation of it when the core tool are required. But if you think about the sketching and the drawing, and until the wireframes part do come in, I
Mhm.
mean, we can actually transfer it till then. Cool. Back to another question. I'm a little bit biased towards augmented reality or virtual reality. What is your take on that?
I think the difference will be similar to like desktop applications and mobile applications, you know, because like we still have laptops, like mobile phones
Right.
didn't get rid of the laptop. And
Uh-huh.
so I think virtual reality is meant for immersive, highly engaging experience where you are in a different space and
Mhm.
kind of doing deep work, similar to like being on a desktop application. I think augmented reality, it's really useful for information layering. So maybe if you're in a new city, you can put on maybe some augmented reality glasses, look at different restaurants with it, identify maybe some friends nearby. It can add a layer to your world. So I think AR will be more like real world annotation, and then VR will be like almost like a separate world immersion.
I mean, think about this. I put on AR headsets and I'm walking, and then I meet you, and it says five mutual friends. So
Yeah, yeah,
I can
exactly. That could
I can
happen.
just go
Yeah,
in and say hello. Probably we know these guys, so would you want to grab a drink or something?
yeah, yeah, that's amazing. And also, you could also put it on and say like, oh, someone else has been here previously, or someone else is like in the area.
True.
You could also think about another very interesting scenario that I've been thinking about is like almost helping us become superhuman. So if you think of a surgeon, imagine a surgeon doing like very intense surgery. They can get like vital analytics. They could get like 3D renderings. They could like
Yeah.
kind of visualize the different organs.
True.
Or maybe like an engineer, someone who's like a mechanical engineer, they could kind of look at a car engine and kind of visualize, where the different parts are, identify the different parts. So we're almost going to become real world Iron Man, kind of an experience. So I'm really excited to see
True. How far
what
do you think
AR
that
has.
what is the timeline looks like for this? I mean,
Oh,
we
for
all
that.
talk yeah, we were talking about electric cars since my childhood, and now it has become a reality. It took about 25 years to actually see an electric car on the road. And now we are talking about VR and AR. With all the excitement that now we talk about AR and VR, how long do you think that it will take for it to become a household reality?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So I would say that right now we're kind of in the stage that like social media might have been when we still had like flip phones.
Hmm.
And because like during that time, it was very difficult to get like high speed data and internet on your phone. I remember when I was like a kid, one of my classmates was panicking because he's like, oh, I use the internet on my phone and my parents are going to get so mad at me because of the internet bill. It's going to
Uh-huh.
cost so much just to get the internet because like it was on a flip phone. So that's kind of like where we're at, like it was very latent, it was very slow, the amount of data that you can get. So the biggest hurdle is going to be the data infrastructure. Because in order to be at that stage, we need like high computational power in these tiny compact devices. Like someday VR headsets will be almost as light as like glasses,
Hmm.
to where instead of being big and heavy, it could just be as light and be something that's very dense and packed with high computational power. But because it's 3D, there's so much data that it's processing, it's hard to like get that form factor. So the other challenge is going to be like data speeds. So I would say, in my opinion, when it comes to like in terms of how long it'll take to get here, like we're there today in terms of maybe more early adopters. So those that are early adopters, maybe tech enthusiasts, are very already in the space building the future. I would give it probably, I think, in maybe 10 years, I would say all the big players are going to come out with their respective devices. So Apple's probably going to come out with mixed reality headsets, and all the other like big tech companies. Someday, like I think having a mixed reality headwear is going to be just as common as having a smartphone. But I would give it like probably 10 to 15 years.
10 to 15. I mean, I believe that we are going to be in the vicinity. Of course, 5G is going to help big time with real-time computations, but wearables to be, I mean, we just saw the Dyson air purifier that they have launched. It
Oh yeah,
looks
I saw that.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it does the job, but it looks quite random that you have the headphone and then you have the air purifier. And everybody is on, going blasting about it that yes, it's a product, it works, but would you ever want to be seen wearing one? That is the challenge, that in the public acceptance part again becomes a big deal when it comes to anything which is as revolutionary as that. Okay, so with fun parts, this is the time for our rapid fire at UX banter. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were a superhero, what would your power be?
Oh, flight all the way. Easy.
Right?
Yeah, I have amazing dreams where I imagine that I'm flying. And I think that's like the one superpower I would want. The more practical one, very similar, would probably be teleportation. It would make travel a lot less expensive.
Flying is always going to sort that out, but the time it will take, there's still like 4 hours to the destination.
Plus, if I wanted to travel to see you, I'd have to wear a coat and fly because it'd be pretty cold. So I think flight would be for fun, and then teleportation would be for practicality.
Yep. And no visas required to go anywhere.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, a lot easier for sure. Yeah.
Okay, window or aisle seats?
Oh, that's a great question. Definitely the aisle seats, so that I can like quickly get up if I want to without bothering a stranger.
I think if I get the window seat, there is always some space where I can actually lean on.
Oh yeah.
That is,
you can actually, you can sleep better on the window seat, but I never sleep well on planes. Yeah.
Your favorite TV show of all time?
Ooh, I think recently it's been WandaVision. This is an amazing series. Another one, I'm kind of torn between WandaVision and Silicon Valley. So I think WandaVision was a really great drama theatrical experience, and then Silicon Valley for me is probably the most relatable show. It makes fun of like startup culture, and what I really loved about that show is that every caricature that they made fun of, I actually knew someone in real life that that was just like that person.
We had Felix on the show from ADP List, and Felix, when I asked him this question, he was like, there is, without a shred of doubt, he just said Pokemon, and that was it.
That's a good show too. I haven't watched that in a while.
Okay, your favorite holiday destination?
That's a great question. Well, I just booked my I just booked a trip to Hawaii. So
nice one.
I think that'll be my answer. I'm getting married this September, so that's where we're having our honeymoon. So yeah, thanks.
Cool. Okay, books or movies?
Great question. I would say definitely movies or audiobooks. I think for me, the hard thing about books is that you really have to like have like dedicated time to like not do anything else. So I'd say movies for sure, but I do appreciate the knowledge that comes from books. It's hard for me to like stop, do nothing else, and like absorb the information. So I'm more of like an audiobook person. Okay.
So if I say a movie, which movie do you think that you would like to recommend for everybody should watch?
Oh man, Spider-Man No Way Home. I just saw that in theaters a little while ago. It was amazing. Especially, I mean, for me, like I keep up with the Marvel series, and if you've seen all the other movies, it's
Mhm.
very rewarding to see everything kind of come together.
Come together. That was a very crazy concept to begin with. I mean, people were talking about that they are going to
Yeah.
do this, and it was really hard to wrap your head around that how the whole thing is going to happen, and suddenly it does, and it actually is basically gives the redemption arc to Andrew Garfield and
Tobey Maguire.
yes, Tobey Maguire, the favorite
Yeah,
Spider-Man
yeah, yeah.
ever.
Well, it also was the redemption arc to the villains, like Otto
Yeah,
Octavius. Like
true.
what I really appreciate about the film, and this is a spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it yet, so skip ahead if you haven't watched it. Most superhero movies have followed the same formula
Uh-huh.
over and over and over, to where it's like, oh no, like the protagonist comes across a superpower and has a love interest, and the love interest gets kidnapped, and then the protagonist must like fight the bad guy, but the bad guy turns out to be someone that they know. So it's kind of, I get tired of it. So what I appreciate about this film was that it took that formula and flipped it. So it's like, oh well, what if the villains are troubled people?
Mhm.
Octavius had a chip malfunction, and it kind of looked at it from a different perspective that was refreshing, and kind of a different spin than most superhero movies. So that's what I really appreciated.
On the story front, I mean, have you looked at the new series called Moon Knight?
Oh, I haven't watched that yet. No, I haven't.
Yeah, I think there are about 3 episodes out, and at the end of the third episode, I was like, some idea that what is going on. Otherwise, it's just crazy, crazy world which is out there. You should try it because they don't tell you where the hero is coming from, where it's going, and just things are happening at random.
Yeah,
And now there is some, baseline is happening. I think that is an amazing show. You should try that. And no advertisement involved.
yeah. No.
Okay, your favorite phone app, Facebook.
Oh, that's a great question. So yeah, I'd say I spend a lot of time. Let's see, actually, where I spend a lot of my time. I spend a lot of time on Facebook, Instagram, and I think one of my favorite productivity is also Asana. Although it's more of a workplace like task management tool, I use it to like run my entire life of like, okay, this is my task for like, what I want to do for date night, when my car oil needs to be changed, when I need to do laundry. So I really love the Asana app as well. Another one that I've been for personal finance, there's one called Copilot that has an amazing UI
Yeah.
to seeing all my finances in one place. Um, but yeah, so I'd say like Facebook and Instagram are really great for keeping touch with my friends. Asana is really amazing for like keeping my life in order. I don't think I'd be on top of my to-do list or get anything done without Asana. And then I really love the UI for Copilot Finance.
Okay. So with Copilot, Asana, and the other apps that we have gathered in this show are Notes app, TikTok for some reason, and
Oh, okay.
and Uber, just for the simplicity of it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
all right.
I
So,
never got on TikTok. I don't know, man. It's just uh I don't think I ever got interested in TikTok. It just wasn't for me.
no, the app was named by Mr. Neil Food, who is the CMO for Within Inc. And his idea was that the algorithm, I mean, based on what you are actually want to watch, it keeps showing you the similar videos, and that
Yeah,
algorithm
yeah, yeah.
actually, because if you're looking at my TikTok and your TikTok, it will be completely different experience.
It's different.
Um,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
yeah, if you are searching and if you're watching on a specific topic, you will get more information on that one. It's just that having that infamous line attached to it. That's why people are not it has a reputation of sorts, but that was
Yeah, yeah,
what
for
we
sure.
actually gathered. Okay, so the
That's
last
fine.
one, what would you do if you were president for a day, president of the United States?
Oh man, that's a great question. I would introduce universal basic income. I think that we are in a unique stage in history where we've got the technology, we've got the manufacturing to produce so many goods at scale. It used to be that you had to work 40 hours a week or even like 100 hours a week to produce enough enough food at the farm, and you had to do a lot of work, and you got maybe a little bit of food that you could produce. But now in the age of like mass manufacturing, automation, AI, all these amazing technology that we have, now we're able to do, we've got industrial farms where you could do like a little bit of work and produce hundreds and hundreds times more than you had to do previously in the same amount of hours. So we have so much, we have so many goods, but yet there's so much, I feel like there's not enough, there's a lot of income disparity. And we need, in order to balance out, I think that it's actually good for the economics to have some sort of base income, because if you have so many goods that you're producing, but the people can't afford it, then those things go to waste. And then, the businesses can't sustain themselves. So I think we're at a unique stage in society where we're out producing more than we can consume. So I think a universal base income will kind of balance it so that we no longer actually have to work as long as we used to as a society because of this technology. So that's what I would do.
You've already been giving a lot of thought lately.
Yeah, I thought about it for a while. Yeah.
Okay, great answers. Okay, so that brings us to the closure of the rapid fire. But coming back to the UX and the career and the product designing part of it. So Tim, what is your mantra of building a product that people want and want to know that how to use those products? What is your metrics of designing products that bring delight to the users?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think a lot of times, a lot of startup founders, they get obsessed with building a company or building a product, and they want to make revenue, but they lack purpose. So oftentimes, some startups will say, okay, I want to build something. Now I need to find a problem, but I think the other way around is the way that really delights and inspires users. When someone isn't really looking, someone doesn't say, hey, I have a solution, I have a technology, let me apply it somewhere. I think to really build products that consumers fall in love with, it's the other way around. Falling in love with the problem, because problems that are big, when you fall in love with the problem and build empathy with the users, I think you'll find a lot more product success, because you're not building features for the sake of being flashy or getting more advertisement ROI. You're building features for empathy. So I think empathy is key for building products that people love. Because when you understand the deeper levels in which consumers fall in love with your product, they're not really, people don't buy the product for the features. They buy it for the benefits and the emotional and practical problems that it solves.
True.
So I think falling in love with the problems and being deeply embedded in it, being an end user yourself, a lot of tech companies have never even been a consumer of what they build. And so it's hard to develop empathy when you don't know who you're designing
what
for.
you're solving. I think I may be wrong. I mean, I may be way off the mark, but this is the feeling that I get whenever I think about blockchain. Blockchain is an amazing solution, but I don't think that we have yet ran into the problem that it could solve.
Oh, yeah, this is a great one. Yeah, for sure. Because right now, what I see is there's people using blockchain to buy $1 million JPEGs of 8 NFTs. Yeah. And for me, I mean, I personally would not use I personally wouldn't be interested in that. But there is, yeah, you're absolutely right. There is a lot of probably more valuable use cases. I'm trying to think of I would say, I guess when it comes to maybe identity verification in that space, that is yet to be used. So for example, imagine if you could use blockchain or NFTs for maybe your license, Because if we can say, okay, this license is an authentic serialized entity, you can't just like duplicate and use a false identity. Things like that, I think, are some opportunities for practicality. But yeah, I think you're definitely right. There's definitely a lot more than just, I don't know, buying buying JPEG
A
NFTs.
painted monkey.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that there's someone listening here who just dropped a lot of money on a JPEG, but I don't think I would personally do it. I think if it was maybe a more practical price point, I might spend it if it was like, if there's a usefulness. Like I might buy like an avatar for the metaverse, but like I think my price point wouldn't be in the millions.
True. I think that would be a great use case, that, but that again is going to be adopted at the government and agencies level, where the governments can have digitized passports and the visa associated or
Exactly.
implemented. So
Yeah.
you have all the digital information stored. So I can travel the world without the worrying about carrying my passport. And the machines would identify and just let me through. I think that is the way that you can have the individual identity. International passport person can have and travel without the worrying of, all the waiting and, visas and all that. I think that is one of the biggest problems that it can actually solve. Wow.
Yeah, another one that I just thought of was like Carfax. So
Uh-huh.
Carfax is a privatized way to kind of keep track of the history of a car.
Uh-huh.
But imagine if it was opened to like an open source like blockchain and accessible to anyone who had like access to like your private key. When you purchase a car, you could look at the blockchain. So if someone says, oh, hey, there's been no accidents, if everything was like connected to this VIN number, you could say, okay, well, based on the blockchain, it wasn't this accident. This claim was filed. This is how many times the oil was changed. So imagine if like the history
Entire
of,
service history. Yeah. And even the
yeah,
photographs that how the damages, how severe
yeah,
were the damages.
yeah, exactly. And so because it could create a lot of accountability, especially
Yeah.
in the used car market, because people are very hesitant to buy a used car on like Facebook Marketplace
Uh-huh.
or like Craigslist, because you're like, I don't know if I could trust this person if they say the car is worth this much. But using blockchain technology, if you find a car on Craigslist, you'd be like, oh, let me like look at the blockchain. Okay, this is the mileage that the blockchain has. This is how much service it has. I think there's a lot of opportunity for there as well. So any startup founders listening to this, go build it.
No copyright intended on the
Yeah,
idea.
I'll get maybe a 10% equity stake.
I mean, these brainstorming sessions, they always come out at the end that, yeah, something can be done locally. So the solution is always there. There is blockchain. Now let's figure out where to implement it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I'm learning about it myself. I think there's a lot that I don't know about it. I think the possibilities are pretty big and exciting.
Cool. So you do a lot of mentoring as well. I mean, we have seen you on ADP list. We have seen you, take bookings, and people can come and talk to you over the platform. And there are many people who come and ask you so many, variety of questions. So what is the common advice that you give to all of them, and what are the things that you wish that somebody would have told you at the, a few years ago when you were starting out?
Yeah, definitely. So I have kind of, I would say, I think I have 3 buckets of advice. So the first bucket is on craft. The second bucket is on building a portfolio. And then the third is like identifying opportunities. So in the first bucket of, learning the craft, one of the most common advice that I give my mentees is that when you first start out, it can be like exciting to reinvent the wheel and come up with your own UX patterns and say, I want to reimagine the button. For decades we've had the button. I'm going to create my own way of using the button that's going to revolutionize the world. But what they might not think about is, okay, is this new idea that you might think of, maybe it doesn't take into consideration accessibility. How would someone who's maybe visually impaired use this new thing that that hasn't been done before? So I would say when learning the craft, you can save a lot of time by learning from the masters. There's an audiobook that I'm listening to called The Laws of UX, where they identify principles and concepts. I could drop a link to what I've been listening to. But yeah, so this book, The Laws of UX, it kind of talks about fundamental principles about UX that are tried and true. And by following these conventions that the big tech companies have established, so think about like sign up flows, selection patterns, deleting patterns, drag and drop patterns. I would say someone who's just starting out, don't reinvent the wheel, copy the masters and understand the principles, and focus on understanding, okay, why does this work? What's the principle behind that? And then down the road in your career, once you understand the principles, then you could revolutionize. So an example of a revolutionary like UX design that I think of was like the Tinder swipe. Like
True.
that idea of like swiping on an app was like totally new. Before that, I mean, there might have been some before, but Tinder made it really popular. The way that we interacted was like button click, button tap. So we're in this very like old school mentality based on like old fashioned machinery, like typewriters and old fashioned machinery. But then Tinder was like, okay, let's revolutionize this and think of a new way of interacting with this swipe gesture. But it was based on a principle of feedback and heuristics that like the human mind can conceptualize and understand.
Right.
So I think it's important to like copy the established conventions, understand why it works, and then down the road, then you could revolutionize. So that's bucket one on craft. The second advice is on building your portfolio. And one things that I see a lot is a mentee goes through a boot camp, they have their case study, they copied what the instructor said, and they or they have maybe like an Airbnb redesign. And the challenge with this is that their case studies and portfolios tend to look very generic. And as someone who's reviewed a lot of applicants, it's very common to see the same types of projects over and over and over.
True.
Even the same like stock photo images on Unsplash. I'm like, oh, I know that Unsplash character. So I would say when it comes to building your portfolio, treat your portfolio like a product. Because when you build a product, you have to think, okay, who's the demographic? What's the niche market that I want to cater my portfolio to? So instead of saying, I'm going to design anything, start by saying, okay, well, maybe I want to focus on the fitness industry, or I want to focus on the healthcare space, or maybe the manufacturing space, or maybe the social media space. Make all of your case studies kind of around that industry, because your end user is a hiring manager. So the hiring manager, let's say that your hiring manager is someone who's in healthcare. If your case study is totally unrelated, when they look at your portfolio, they're not going to be as interested in hiring you, because hiring managers think, okay, what could this candidate do for the problems that my product faces? So if you identify a market and say, okay, I want to be in this general space, when a hiring manager from that industry looks at it, so let's say that you want to focus on healthcare, if you've got like maybe a healthcare mobile app, a healthcare desktop app, and maybe like a healthcare voice Alexa skill that you designed, they're thinking, okay, this person knows the space, they understand my user needs. And I think that's one thing that UX designers ironically forget about, like the hiring manager is the user, and you have to like do competitive research and user persona work on the hiring manager who's looking at your portfolio. So that's my advice in the portfolio bucket. And so the third and final bucket is that a majority of my opportunities opportunities and jobs that I've received in life didn't actually come from applying cold online. For me, most of the opportunities I've received was through relationships. And a lot of job seekers can be discouraged if, they're saying, oh, I've applied to hundreds of different places, but I'm not hearing back. One thing that I have found is oftentimes the job that you want isn't even posted yet. And so building relationships with people, so being part of communities like on LinkedIn or ADP list, when you build relationships with people, then when there is an opportunity, oftentimes you'll learn about it before there's even a job post. They might say, oh yeah, hey, like, we've been connected, like I see your content, you're part of this community. When you build community and you're a part of the tech ecosystem and you're very involved in the space, I feel like you will be prone to a lot more opportunities coming to you and applying to you than having to apply cold on online job sites. So I think there's definitely an incredible opportunity for new designers looking to jump into UX by being part of community.
True. I mean, all these 3 points that you said, I 100% agree and in line with what you are trying to convey here. I mean, let's go back to the first one. You said, don't reinvent the wheel. And I think it holds true on so many levels that if you're a designer, if you can just go through the Google design guidelines, the material design ones, to have the best application out there, if you can just read the human guidelines created by Apple, that will help you. And the similar fashion, if you like something on Dribble, why not try and recreate it? You will understand the fonts and the sizing, the margins and the paddings, the leaning and the kernings, the way something moves, rather than just, thinking that, oh, something might look like this. Because most of the times, if you're working for a big organization, you just mentioned that Facebook has a larger design system, but you have those things already defined. It must be a huge system. Now, how can you, as a new designer, come on board and make sure that everything that you design is within those guidelines? And I think that is a far bigger challenge than creating something new and then taking it to the top. So I think that is one advice that, we at Galaxy also make sure that the designers that we have, by the way, we have a team of about 100 designers at Galaxy Studio. And we do all sorts of, from design systems to end-to-end UX delivery, everything together here as well. So that is one of the things that I agree with 100%. Second is that I completely agree about that, having that portfolio, which is one dimensional. In India, we get to see a lot of food delivery applications coming in. And the person is there in trying to, give the interview. And when I say, show me something, and they are showing us that food delivery apps. I said, what happens when I order? I said, what do you mean? I said, where does it go? Who sees it?
What's the
does it go to the restaurant? And what does the person who is making money gets out of it? And what does the delivery person is looking at? So if the delivery person has no idea where to go, you just missed out like the entire application you were just showing me, which is already available like 20,000 times in different portfolios. So you're not thinking about the users. And that is, raises a big flag for me that this is just one dimensional portfolio which I'm reviewing. And the person has yet to understand that what other stakeholders can be included in the mix. So yeah, I think that's great zone to be. And about the third one, I think it's essential for designers and even the community to just go in and talk and just understand what is what. I mean, look at us. I mean, I see this as a privilege to be able to have a conversation with you. Your insights were wonderful. And I believe that anybody who is going to listen to this conversation, I mean, we talked about blockchain, we talked about Facebook, VR, and the mobile apps. We did a bit of a banter and then a lot of career advice that came out of it. So senior or junior, it doesn't matter, whichever role that you are in. I think this was a fantastic time that everybody must have had. So with that, I would like to thank you, Tim, for joining us. Any last words, any parting remarks?
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for hosting me. Thank you for your time. And for those listening who are interested in more advice about design, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn and YouTube.
Cool. So LinkedIn and YouTube links for Tim will be available at the start of this podcast. I mean, I can just put it right there in the description and the links. So please get in touch with him. Also, I will put the ADP list URL, if you don't mind, for the bookings.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
So that you can actually connect directly, book a session with Tim. And I think that would be, one of the best sessions that you might going to have. All right. So thank you so much once again for joining us. And we wish you a wonderful time ahead.
Have a good one. Thanks so much.
Bye. So, guys, this was today's episode. And next week, we'll have another person, another design leader for a call or another podcast session. And till then, have a great day.